Right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another Iowa Learning Farm 2025 Conservation webinar series. Um, I can't believe this is the second webinar of August already. Summer has definitely flown by this year, hopefully not as fast for everyone else as it has been for me. Um, uh, so today, my name is Malcolm Robertson. I'm a program specialist with the Iowa Nutrient Research Center. I'm sitting in place of Matt Helmers, who couldn't be here today, and hopefully I can do as good a job as he normally does. So anyway, without any further ado, our guest speaker today for this webinar is Madelynn Wuestenberg. Madelynn is an ISU grad, has a BSc in meteorology and an MS in uh, agricultural meteorology. And her subject today is climate tools for ag decision making. If you have any questions, please write them into the chat box, and we'll get to them at the end. Madelynn, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Malcolm. I'm glad to be here and excited to talk about climate tools for ag decision making. So hopefully everyone can learn something from this webinar. And at the end, we'll do a live demo of some of my favorite ag climate decision making tools. So we'll dig into those websites and how to use them. So thank you for the great introduction. My name is Madelynn Wuestenberg. I am the agricultural climatology extension specialist for Iowa State University. So I am based here in Ames on campus, and I serve the entire state. And some of the responsibilities I have in this role are participating and supporting education for extension field days, attending and delivering content at conferences, both kind of locally, statewide, regionally, and nationally. I help put together content for the Integrated Crop Management blog and the blog for the Natural Resources Stewardship website through Iowa State Extension. And really, I am working to collaborate and connect with both state, regional, and national partners. So I'm really enjoying this role. I love supporting Iowa farmers and getting to connect with other ag climate specialists across the US. So, weather and agriculture. Of course, probably no one here is surprised by the fact that weather can really make or break the crop yield outcome, but we can't control it. So, what we have to do as producers and as farmers is optimize our crop management decisions to reduce those weather-related risks. So, what we can control is how we prepare and how we manage our agricultural systems to best be prepared for either future climates or extreme weather events. And so, weather data helps inform our planting and harvest schedules, how we do irrigation management, especially in Western Iowa, pest and disease forecasting and control, and understanding what environmental conditions are most conducive for pest and disease. Frost and heat stress protection, helping determine which cultivars are best to plant, and helping plan for nutrient management. So in the next few slides, we'll talk about some ways that weather data is collected. So the first is we're going to kind of go from really big, large spatial scale to maybe some finer spatial scale. So satellites, these are used for monitoring the weather. We can collect lightning data from satellites. We can understand long-term climate trends through satellite data, understanding drought and how vegetation and the land surface are reacting to drought or excess precipitation. We can understand fire and its extent and smoke movement. We can monitor our oceans and the solar system and outer space with satellites. So really, there's great capability we can do with that kind of data, but it doesn't quite get us down to the field scale. So another data collection method that's typically used for these ag climate decision-making tools would be the National Weather Service radar network. So on the picture on the right, that's an example of what those radars look like. And they're monitoring precipitation, snow, severe thunderstorms, wind speed, and biologicals like bird migrations, or we can often see bats leaving caves in the evening, which is really neat to get to see that kind of data through radar. But these are especially useful during events of severe weather. We also use radiosondes, or more commonly known as the weather balloon, and this provides a vertical profile of the atmosphere. So it gives us an idea from the surface up to the top, almost top of the atmosphere, what conditions are we expecting. And these are used as input data for um, weather forecast models. So these help inform the forecasts that we use on a day-to-day basis to make decisions about, should I pack an umbrella or a rain jacket today? Or am I going to be able to spray? Or is it possibly going to be too windy later in the day or early in the morning? So these are very useful for providing data for informing those weather forecast models. We also have data collected through the ASOS and AWOS stations. So this is a network of data collection, weather data collection at airports across the US. And these collect temperature, dew point, wind, precipitation, total rate and type, lightning data, cloud cover, and visibility. So all the types of variables that are really important for pilots, of course, but also this data is useful for informing these decision-making tools and helping really everybody understand what the conditions are like in their area. We also use National Weather Service co-op stations, and these are taking daily temperature, rainfall, snow, and snow depth. This is a volunteer network, so that data isn't always instantaneously available because it has to be quality controlled. So that does take some time, but is very, very useful data. And another way we collect data, weather data, is through mesonets. So a mesonet is a network of collectively owned and operated automated weather stations. They're installed close together, ideally tens of miles apart. And these report data frequently enough to observe, measure, and track meteorological phenomena. So they typically have shorter time scales, even down to the minute. And of course, I can't give a talk without talking about CocoRa's. This is the Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network. This is a network of volunteer rainfall reporters. So every day at 7 a.m., reporters all across the nation are sharing how much rain or snow, potentially reports of hail and drought occurrences as well through this volunteer network. And each of the volunteers in this network have a standard rain gauge. There's an example on the right of what that rain gauge looks like. And so that really helps standardize all of those measurements across the US so that we can compare them. So if we're using the same instrument, then we can compare those measurements. And it gets a much smaller spatial scale than we can observe with our automated stations. And so really the idea of this is we know that oftentimes, especially in the summers, rainfall events can be highly differential spatially. And so if we have a high volume of observations, we have a better idea of how much rain is actually falling. So this data is used to help inform and improve radar estimated rainfall tools. So highly recommend, if you're not already, to become a CocoRa's reporter. And if you have any questions about how to do that, please feel free to reach out. So, what are decision support tools. They're digital platforms or models or systems that are designed to help farmers, land managers, or agricultural advisors make informed decisions in the face of climate variability and change. So we know that um, we have more annual precipitation than we did 30 years ago. How do we look at that data and help better inform our agricultural decisions because of that? They also look at integrated climate data, agronomic models, and economic or environmental considerations to support planning and risk management. So, what land management ideas are valuable to you, and what conservation practices might you really resonate with? How do those fit in your agricultural system, and how do the data support that decision? There are a couple different types of decision support tools. The first is based on a climatology. So, looking at past conditions, how might that help us make decisions for the future? We can look at monitoring and forecasts, and these provide pertinent information on current conditions. So, what has been going on so far this season, and how might I need to change some later in the season management decisions based on what's been observed in the recent past and what is expected in the near future. And then finally, ag climate decision support tools. These include computer-based algorithms to help analyze parameters for future decision making. So we're gonna talk about each of these, and then we'll show examples of these tools. So for climatologies, they allow producers to make decisions. So an example of a tool based on climatology would be this tool from the Midwest Regional Climate Center that looks at the first and last fall and spring freeze trends for your county. And so we can look at that data and help understand, okay, if we have a average last spring freeze on this date, then we would be able to plan for planting sometime around there. And we can look at how these first and last freeze trends have been changing since 1950. And so some ways we might use this is planting date adjustments. We might select different varieties based on the number of growing degree days they require. It may help us with irrigation planning, cover crop implementation, land use allocation, and help with risk management. For monitoring and forecasts, these allow producers to make decisions. It could be decisions in the next about week to few weeks. And so help make decisions on planting. When are we going to plant? What variety should we select? For in-season management, pest and disease control and management, we have tools that look at growing degree accumulation and when certain pests might emerge. We can think about irrigation planning and particular chemical applications. We can also look at crop health and maturation, so addressing yield potential, stress potential, and insurance decisions. We also have forecasts. So if you don't already use the National Weather Service for your forecast information, I highly recommend you do. When you log in or go to the National Weather Service website, you can type in your zip code here and hit go, and that will take you to a forecast for your particular location. That is a point-specific forecast. This goes out about 7 days. And there's a graphical forecast that shows high and low temperature and a picture showing what those general conditions might be like. If you scroll down on that website, of course, there is a more detailed forecast that writes out what the conditions at your location are expected to be in the next several days. And then if you continue exploring the website, of course, there are many more resources and forecast tables of future forecasts, and you can look back at the past 3-day history. That link is easy to get to. So 3-day history, hourly weather forecasts are both super useful tools. I highly recommend that this is your first place to look at for a forecast for about the next week. All right, so an ag climate decision support tool allows you to make decisions. And one of the um, tools that I really like is the Midwest Regional Climate Center Growing Degree Day tool. So this tool can help determine optimal planting dates, maturity group selection, and seeding rates. So this takes a look at your location and the um, type of crop you're interested in planting and provides data for the first or last spring freeze and that first fall freeze. So we have the average date for this location in that tall blue bar, but also shows, at this location there have been some late spring freezes, and you may want to consider planting after that, especially if you're looking at soil temperature data and it's maybe on the cooler side. And then this helps you see that kind of average black layer for this crop and the error bars for that black layer timing, and really gives you a good idea of that is staying out of the range of especially the average first fall freeze date. So we'll do a live demo of this tool. We'll see here, and this is what that looks like. So it pulls up a map. This is available in essentially the Midwest right now, but we can zoom in, and you can zoom in pretty far and find um, your county of interest, or really your part of the county that you're farming in. So we'll pick near in Jones County in eastern Iowa, and we'll click Create Growing Degree Day Graph. It may take a second, but that's okay. We're patient. So what you can do with this is for corn, this particular tool. So we can select our planting date. I'll change that to, April 24th. We'll get a little before the start of May. We can change the number of days our corn takes to mature. So maybe we have 100-day corn. So that will change the growing degree days required, the black layer growing degree days. We'll be able to see that variation. That's this blue shaded bar. So all years where there's data, we can choose our freeze temperature. I will keep that at 28. And then it'll pull current data up until today. So what we see here for Jones County is if we planted on April 24th, we aren't quite in the clear for past observed freeze, 28-degree freezes in this county, but we are a little bit past that average freeze. So depending on what the current spring is looking like, if our soil temperatures have warmed up pretty fast, potentially maybe we did tillage in our fields, so we have warmer soils earlier in the spring. Maybe we're thinking, it's probably safe to plant, and the benefits outweigh the risks here. And so we planted on April 24th. We are, as of today, ahead of schedule, above climatology for the 2025 growing degree days. So we can see that green line is above this purple line where it shows the average growing degree day accumulation by around this date. And this is the average between 1991 to 2020, and the value up until around August 11th, 12th, and today is the 13th. So what's beneficial about this is we can also see a potential growing degree day projection. So where might we end towards the end of the growing season? At this point with growing degree day accumulation, we see that for this crop, in this location, average black layer is expected sometime at the very beginning of September, September 1st, and we're definitely in the clear for any historic fall freeze dates here. So you can save this data from this website, and it has charts showing when you would expect emergence, when you would expect V2, V4. So it really charts out for the rest of your growing season based on the growing degree day accumulation and the variety you chose in the plotting tool when each of these important vegetative stages might occur based on average growing degree day accumulation. Great. I will head back to the PowerPoint. All right, next we'll do a demo of the Midwest Regional Climate Center freeze date tool. So this one I really love. It shows a map of currently it is selected for the last spring freeze date. We're going to take a look at the first fall freeze date. And on the right-hand side, you can change some parameters. So you can change the freeze temperature. Maybe you're not interested in 32 degrees. Maybe you were interested, it does take a little bit to load, in 28 degrees Fahrenheit. And this is showing the average. So the average date for that county when 28 degrees Fahrenheit would be reached. And so in Story County, that date is October 21st. We can also look at when was the earliest ever 28-degree freeze date in Story County was October 1st. In Boone County, it was September 24th. In Kossuth, it was September 23rd. So this just shows some different statistics for these various freeze temperatures and when they occurred. When you click on a county, I'm going to go back to average. We'll keep 28. When you click on a county, it will pull up by temperature when the last spring freeze date occurred. And it shows data from 1950 to 2025 for our last spring freeze date. We have that data for this year. We don't quite have the first fall freeze date. We're still enjoying summer heat. But we can see how for 20 degrees Fahrenheit, 25, 28, 30, 32, and so on, how these dates have changed. And so if that slope is positive, we're seeing that this last spring freeze date is happening a little bit earlier in the year than it was since 1950. So we can look at each of those. We can see in 2012, that last spring 25-degree freeze date happened on March 10th. So that was our earliest for Story County for 25 degrees. So this just gives you an idea of how those springs are changing, how our growing season is lengthening with these earlier last spring freezes. We are seeing some later first fall freezes. We can also see those records. We can change the period of record shown on these plots and it will readjust so we can see a shorter period of record shows some negative slopes. But again, we can view these as a stats table. We can download the data and save this. So that is that tool. And last, I'll talk about the Iowa Environmental Mesonet. So I hope many of you are familiar with this resource. Um, it is a website with a massive number of portals, API services, auto plots, and spinning disk archives. So I'm sure if you have used this, you probably haven't used it to its full potential, full power. And so that's why we'll talk through some of these things. But it's a website with intentionally stable URLs and hopefully predictable interfaces to link against. So if you save a URL, it should remain there. The website code is all available on GitHub, and it has about 250,000 users per day. This is a slide with how many acronyms I can get away with putting on one slide, but this is really showing all of the different input data resources that are going into the Mesonet that you have access to. So this is just to show you that this is a really powerful tool and lots of really great data is coming in to use it. All right, and we'll take you to the Iowa Environmental Mesonet. This is the home page. If you save this page, I highly recommend you do. Come to it every day. Every single day, Daryl Hersman posts a new IEM daily feature, and it's usually something relevant to what conditions we've been observing across the state. If you keep scrolling down, there's quick links to the soil temperature, 24-hour past precipitation, and current surface data. So if we take a look at soil temperatures, there's the past 3-day observations. So we see around the state, we're hovering right around in that mid-ish to 70s, high 60s for that 4-inch soil depth. But then on the right-hand column, we also have a forecast for 4-inch soil temperatures. So this gives us an idea of the next several days, what those soil temperatures are expected to look like. Highly recommend bookmarking this tool. It's especially useful when planning spring planting. And I think I need to wrap up probably here pretty quick. So the last thing I'll show is the IEM Explorer. This is a tool that allows you to quickly look at data from any of these stations nearest to you. So if we look here, we can see data from Ames and we can see the average temperature. There's all these different options for data plotting at this location with this data. And what I really like is you can change the variable you're looking at. So total precipitation for July in Ames, create chart. And we see that so far this year in Ames, we've had 11.5 inches in July, but still not beating the record of 1993, where July saw 15.4 inches of precipitation. So this is super, super powerful. I hope you explore this website, get comfortable with it, and of course, feel free to reach out if you're ever stuck. I'm happy to talk through this data and how to use it anytime. Alrighty. If you want to hear from me and Justin Glisson, our state climatologist, and Dan Filius, who is our state vegetable specialist for Extension, highly recommend you tune in to our podcast, What in the Weather. The first part of the episode is a weather recap and weather and climate forecast, and the second part is a specialty crop impacts overview of the state. So really recommend you tune in and check that out. And this is my contact information and a QR code to the website I maintain through the Natural Resources Stewardship Extension site. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in today.
Excellent. Thanks, Madelynn. A lot of information there. So just a bit of housekeeping. If you've watched this webinar live and want to earn a CCA or CEU, send the following information to Alina Whitaker. That's ALENAW at iastate.edu by close of business today, so 5 p.m. Give her your name, the name you entered on the webinar if it's different, and your CCA number. Okay, so that's Alina Whitaker, ALENAW at iastate.edu. Okay, thanks. Next one.
Sorry, it
That's okay.
wasn't going. There we
No
go.
worries. If you, we have, the Iowa Learning Farms has a voluntary demographic survey. If you've watched the webinar live, please fill out the voluntary survey. You can use this QR code. There's only one survey response needed for all 2025 webinars. You can also find that survey on the Iowa Learning Farms website. So iowalearningfarms.org/survey. And yep, purely voluntary and only one survey per for this whole year. Okay, thanks, Madelynn. Join us next week, Wednesday, August the 20th, for optimizing precision conservation with on-farm precision experiment data, the role of crop insurance and spatial variability profit. This webinar will be done by Professor Karina Skungold, who's a professor in ag economics and associate director of Nebraska Water Center at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And finally, you can get all the webinars on the iowalearningfarm.org site /webinars. They're all archived there. I know I follow all the Iowa Learning Farm webinars, and sometimes you miss them, and you can find them all there, or you can go to the YouTube channel at IA Learning Farms -webinars. Thanks. There are a few questions. Madelynn, I have one first. There's a lot of great tools out there. It's kind of a demographics one. Do you get a lot of farmers using these tools? I know some are more specific researchers. I know I've used the Mesonet, and I saw stuff I didn't know it could do. But do you have any idea on the demographics with the farmers from the farmer side?
Yeah, so unfortunately, we don't collect that specific data of users of this website, but I do know that there are farmers who are using it. And really, my goal is to increase the number of farmers using it. So by doing things like this webinar and doing workshops through Iowa State Extension to get this resource in the hands of farmers, helping them see what the capabilities are and how to use it and how to navigate it is certainly top of mind.
Okay, great. So it's kind of a comment and then a question. Thank you, Iowa State and Daryl, for the IEM. What a valuable resource. When will you expand to Minnesota?
Yeah, great question. So currently we do have certain data portals that are available for all states in the US. So depending on what tool you're looking for, I showed that IEM Explorer tool. That was the one with the map with all the green dots showing different stations. Those green dots are long-term climate sites, which exist all over the country. There's also a little icon with that is specifically for those airport stations, which again exist all across the US. So on that IEM Explorer tool, you're able to use that for any state in the US. And
Okay,
if you have other specific tools you're interested in, shoot me an email and I'll either send you a link to that tool for Minnesota or we'll work with Daryl and get that available if the data is available.
great. The next question was basically on the IM, which you've just answered. There is requests for those links we talked about at the beginning. If you could post them in the chat.
Yes, I will grab those and post them.
Yeah, those are great tools. While you're doing that, so the Mesonet sites are in real time. Is that correct?
There is real-time data available as well as historical data.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I've used any of the real time, but I've never needed that. But I've used the historical, which is great. So for those who wanted the links that Madelynn's used today, they are up. She is putting them up in the chat box for you. And I'm sure you could email her and she'll get those to you also if you miss these.
I have one more, which is really don't need to. There we go.
There's a lot of kudos there. Tyler Bartley had a question. As a beginning farmer who has an interest in using Muizonet in connection with crop study info. Um,
Yeah. So if you're interested in using this data, there is a um, data download portal available through the Mesonet. So that's one way that you can pull data from a site near your farm. But definitely don't hesitate to reach out if you need help doing that or are looking for specific tools.
yeah, he was also asking about installing his own unit.
Oh, that is a great question. We currently are trying to focus on units for the Iowa State Soil Moisture Network at our research stations. Um, but if you have questions about personal weather stations, I'm definitely happy to talk about some different options. The Mesonet sites that we have across the state that are part of the Iowa State Soil Moisture Network, those cost around $10,000 per unit to install.
Pretty pricey, yeah. And then I think that is all the questions we have that have come up. So thank you so much. That was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed it. A lot of information there. Got to go back and look at all these sites and process it all. So thank you, and thank you everyone for joining us for today's webinar. And with that, yeah, thanks. Have a great day and a great weekend or week.